Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for waiting and the chair. My name is Catherine Myberg. I'm not going to say terribly much, but I just want to say welcome. And I just want to introduce Bishop Siyoka, who will take us through the afternoon. Bishop Siyoka is very prominent in African missionary work right across the continent. And he's an Anglican bishop, and he's responsible for the mission across the continent. He was the first clergy person to be at the Marikana on the day of the massacre in 2012. He is the first clergy bishop to intervene on behalf of the students at the Wits Fees Must Fall struggle in 2015. He's the founder and chair of the Benchmarks Foundation, one of the founders and chairs. And he's the first chair of the Justice for Minors Civil Society campaign. I'd like to welcome Bishop, and he will introduce everyone else as well. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Why are you reluctant to greet back? Right, for that reason, you better have the joy of greeting somebody next to you. Good afternoon. How are you? Now that's better. At least you did that fairly well. And thank you for being here this afternoon. This is just an effort of Justice for Minors to get a debate going. Justice for Minors is a fairly young organization which has been organized around the issue of the class action relating to the ex-minors to build this country and subsequently died. Some are still living. But British films and subsequent to the class action thought it was necessary to be advocates of the ex-minors, to tell their story because some of them are very ill, are unable to talk for themselves. Some are already dead. And in actual fact, it would not be an exaggeration to say, as we sit here, somebody may be dying. If you have been to the mines, you would experience the hardship that is there. My visit to the mine was that I couldn't breathe normally. It was suffocating. A lot of dust. It was very hot. It was unbearable. But it taught me something about life in the mining communities. The conditions under which they work, conditions in which they live, the absence of family, the anxiety of not knowing what is happening to the children back home, because you remember how apartheid used to resettle people in the standing areas. And so it's a small effort on our part, but hopefully it will grow, not because of Justice for Minors, but because of you, each one of us, standing up and saying, how can we celebrate human rights where there are no rights? If I may ask you just now, all of you may be able to tell us that my rights or this particular right has been violated. And yet, here we are celebrating. But for that, we must be thankful. And so, hopefully this debate, this sharing, will start here and go out these doors to reach twice as much people that are here. And so I'd like us to stand for a second to think about the miners that died as a result of the silicosis and TB, but also think about people who died on this particular day, struggling for all of us to live a better life. Please stand. And so may the souls of the faithfully departed rest in peace and rise in glory. Amen. Thank you. So we have here a few people that will enable the conversation to start. We have Nomampondo Potilo, who is a widow of an ex-miner, and she will tell us her experience of being married to a miner and now of being a widow with children to take care of. Thank you. And we have Mr. Bongmuzi Mavakisi, a former ex-mine worker who also is here from the Eastern Cape to share his life story and the struggles that he is going through at the moment. He looks okay, but his lungs are telling a different story. And he is the only one that can actually explain what it means to live with silicosis. None of us can do that. And then we have our very own Ziyanda, who is a regional organizer or coordinator of JFM in the Eastern Cape. And she has worked with the lawyers that were doing the class action. And so she has a lot of experience listening to the stories of various people. And then we have Lucas Lidrava. Some of you, like me, only know him on the television or radio. And he is here to share his own journey with miners. Some of them are still living, some have already passed on, but he continues to show interest in the lives of those people. Maybe like myself, sometimes I do have horrible nights when I think of what happened at Marikana. Because I was in the area and I actually heard the bullets and I saw the helicopters. In fact, when I left the area, when I was told you must leave now, the helicopters were beginning to hover over the area. And as I entered the car driving, the bullets started making their own sounds. So I do believe that you have the same experience where you think of a person that you met and subsequently died. And you struggle with what you were trying to do to help with that person. And we have Catherine Maybeck, who is also a founding member from Brit Films and continues to work with JFM as advocacy person. And we have all of you here. Now, JFM is only about 3.5 years old. But we have stories that we have been told about. We have done road shows to listen to people's stories. We have been approached by people to tell us about their lives, their stories, and encouraging us to please do what we can within our means to tell the world of their plight. And of course, to try and persuade Tshiamiso Trust in particular to pay the compensations as quickly as it is possible while people are still alive. So having said that very briefly, and I will stop you if you exceed what I'm saying. Just stand and say, my name is Josie Yoka, I'm an ex-miner, or I'm a widow, or I'm a friend of the miner, or I live in the mining communities. Sir? Just 3 words, not more. Your name and what you do.
Well, I'm a beneficiary of the suffering of the miners, and the film does, the film portrays that so powerfully. So I hope that we can continue to challenge us.
Thank you. Sir? Thank you. Ma'am? Yeah, you can speak sitting down with a child.
I'm Ashley. I'm a foreigner, and I just want to learn more.
Great. Lovely. You're too young, Stan. We want to see you. You are young and beautiful. Look at the people so they can see you. Yeah? Listen, there are no foreigners here. Once we're here, we are human beings and we're family. All right? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next. Just stand lightly like you're looking there so that they can see how beautiful you look. Thank you. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Did you bring some diamond with you? Sir? Thank you. Yes, that's our youngest member. Good. Thank you. Well, try to meet people as well. Great, thank you. Thank you. Great.
Hi, I'm Mashile. I'm really a supporter and I'm somebody working in the civil society, and I like to bring the justice for minors with other civil society.
Thank you. Great.
I'm also an art practitioner and an academic as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
I am Ronald Wisso from Beneficial Technologies. I'm doing some work with Justice for Minors.
Thank you.
Hi everybody, my name is Femke. I'm also with Beneficial Technologies. I'm a mining corporate. I'm here to hear your stories.
Thank you. Great. Wasn't that beautiful? Now say, yes, Mr. Technician. Yeah. Well, that was actually beautiful. We know who is who here. We may not remember, but our minds will record that. So say to the person next to you, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Right. Just stand a little bit, one moment. Just stand. That's it. That's it. Then we ask, like, May Nomampondo to share with us what she has to tell us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Nomampondo, I'm a widow. I got my husband to work at the mine at Western area mining companies. Usweleke uye wanshiya nge 2018 beke phethwe isilukosis. Akhange kube lula xa ebephethwe isilukosis. Khange kube lula.
It was not easy after my husband died
Uhlala nomuntu onesilukosis endlini.
to live with someone who is suffering from silicosis.
Ube umbukele kunzima. Umbukele kunzima.
While watching him getting sick daily,
Uzamile ke hola le Krugersdorp hospital.
he tried his level best to fight for his life. He was hospitalized in Krugersdorp Hospital.
Kulapho ke aye waphelela khona.
That's where he passed away.
Zamile ke uya esimine.
We tried to visit the mining companies.
Imine zasithumela kwi Tshiamiso Trust.
The mining industry sent us to Tshiamiso Trust.
Uye wayifumana ke lump sum ethile kwi MPBOD
There's some sort of a lump sum he received from the MPOD
2016.
in 2016.
Xa sidibana neTshiamiso
When we met with the Tshiamiso Trust
ngo 2021
in 2021,
sisaclaima Eastern Cape.
we went to lodge the claim in the Eastern Cape table offices.
Utepa wase Eastern Cape sifakile izinto.
We lodged the claim at table offices and submitted all the documents.
Since today asibhatalwa nguTshiamiso.
Since today, we have not received any money from the Tshiamiso
And
Trust,
ubomi abululanga
and the life is not easy at all
because kaloku besisurvive ngotata endlini.
because we're depending on my husband for survival.
Ngoku akho umuntu uphangelayo endlini ndim nabantwana.
There's no one who is working. I'm the only person and I'm staying with my children and they're not working also.
And when xa sifuna kaTshiamiso, Tshiamiso ufuna ukwazi ukuthi why i-certificate death ingabhalwa i-causes i-death certificate why ingabhalwanga because it's a natural causes.
The main challenge that we are facing with Tshiamiso Trust, they are asking us why the death certificate was not written silicosis, but it states natural causes.
Kunzima basibhatalwe nguTshiamiso ngenxa yaloo nto.
It's very difficult for us to be compensated by the Tshiamiso Trust because of that.
Kune-widows ezininzi endiye ndadibana nazo.
There are a lot of widows that I've met.
Abanye basolokele ngabayeni because of i-TB.
Some of them, their husband has passed away because of TB.
Nabo i-certificate abanye zibhaliwe TB silicosis, abanye azibhalwanga.
Some of the certificate that they received from the MPOD, they are written silico TB.
Ndikhe ndangena kwilungelo lakho.
I've even consulted ilungelo lakho,
Ndabuza ukuthetha oogqirha baseTshiamiso.
and there was a show that was being done by medical doctors from Tshiamiso Trust.
Xa sizawunikwa yiTshiamiso imali i-MBDO yona i-MBDOH yona ithini into yayo.
And I've asked them if Tshiamiso Trust is responsible for doing the payment, what is it that is being said by the MPOD?
Bathe fanele sibhatalwe yi-MBOD sibhatalwe nayiTshiamiso kodwa kwenzeki.
They said we should be paid by both institutions, Tshiamiso Trust and the MPOD, but that is not happening.
And ke njengoba sinazo izatifiketi zasezimine ezidiagnose abayeni bethu ukuthi bebenesilicosis ne-TB.
As we do have the certificate that state clearly that our husbands died because of silicosis and TB,
Tshiamiso isiqalise kuqala.
we have to start afresh because Tshiamiso Trust is asking too much.
And the time kusayinwa kwakuthiwe makabhatale abantu abanesilicosis mines.
The time that there was a settlement that was reached, the settlement stated that Tshiamiso Trust need to pay people that are suffering from TB and silicosis.
Kodwa ngoku iTshiamiso isiqalisa koogqirha bayo sinazo incwadi zogqirha ezichazayo.
But now Tshiamiso Trust is asking us to go back to those medical institutions and doctors to ask for some medical records where we cannot find them. And some we do have those medical records.
And ke ngoku ithatha ixesha into abayenzayo ngoba lo ngoku babethe xa siclaim it's been 6 months sikwazi ufumana imali zethu.
All this is taking forever. We've been waiting, but when we lodged our claims, they said we are going to wait only for 6 months.
Xa siclaima ngoku sifaka izinto zethu bazihambisa koogqirha funeka ziqale koogqirha babo but banesilicosis bayabona zikhona izitifiketi zesilicosis.
And they are referring us back to those medical doctors when we do have the certificates that state that our husbands died of silicosis.
Sukela ngo-2020, 21, 22 abantu soloko saclaimayo but akho nomnye ufumana imali yesilicosis.
Since 2020, ever since we have lost the claim, none of the people that lost the claim has received the compensation.
Xa sicheka kwinto zeziteji zabo bayasixela ukuthi sicheke njani iziteji. Xa sicheka since sikwi-stage 5 siqala ukleyima siba ku-stage 5 kutsho ukuthi abakho nto bayikhathaleleyo nje yethu abaqhubekeki nee-claims zethu.
When we call them to ask what is it that is holding them back, they do share how we can check our statuses. But when we check our statuses, ever since we've been on stage 5, this shows that they don't care and the process is taking forever.
Xa sibafowunela abazihoyi neefowuni.
Even sometimes when you call them to do the follow-up, the calls are not being answered.
Uba bakubambile efowunini ngelo xesha bakufumene ngalo baza kufuna izinto siya emaila but akho nto yenzeka still sisami ku-stage 5 since 2020 from till to kulo nyaka suku.
If you are fortunate enough to speak with one of their agents, they will ask you some of the information that you've given the Tshiamiso Trust, same agents. And they will ask probably the industry number, ID numbers, and other things. So since 2020 up until today, we've been in stage 5.
And kunzima kakhulu ukuthi singomama
It's very difficult for us as widows
ngoba sihlala emakhaya.
because we stay at our homes.
Ufumanise uba ootata basishiye bengasenzelanga nezindlu sinabantwana siyafundisa.
And our husbands left us without any households, and we have to make sure that our kids do go to school, but we cannot do that.
But still uTshiamiso akasiboneleli needs.
But Tshiamiso is still failing us.
Sicela sorry. Kunexesha abafune izinto ngalo.
There's a time where they asked some documents.
Ngoba bathi izitificate azichazanga ukuthi ubulewe yintoni. So abanye pha kwi-BI nje besingomama simane sidibana babahlolokazi.
So there's a time where they ask some documents. Some of the widows, there's that form from Home Affairs that do some recording of the cause of death.
Kwabanye omama kubhaliwe pha kula BI form yasesibhedlele ukuthi utata ubulewe yintoni.
Some of those BIs from the hospital are written the cause of death, but some, they are not written.
Into endifuna uyazi ngoba abanye omama banazo izitifiketi zesilicosis but kwi-BI akubhalwanga ukuthi utata ubulewe yintoni. Still nalapho bayasisokolisa kodwa sinazo izitifiketi.
Some of the widows do have the certificates that state that their husbands were ill of silicosis, even though the death certificate does not show that this particular person died because of silicosis, probably it's written natural causes. Why they're making it difficult for us to claim?
And ke ngoku kunabomama abanezitifiketi zabayeni ezibhalwe silicosis TB.
There are some widows who have certificates that are written silico TB.
Asikwazi ukuthi basebenzisa njani na ngecertificate ezisesilicosis TB nayo sifuna ucacela ukuthi kwisilicosis plus TB baqhubha njani.
We don't know, or those widows don't know what is it that they can do because they were never told if you hold the certificate that is written silico TB, what is it that you need to do?
And siyasokola Tshiamiso because asikwazi ufikeleleka kuyo.
And it's very difficult because we don't know where to get hold of Tshiamiso, meaning their offices where they are.
Because abazibambi phone xa bethanda.
Because they do not even answer their phones when they like.
That's why can I talk it?
That's all I can share for now.
Thank you very much. There will be time for dialogue, questions of clarification, and other questions that you may find necessary to ask. Let's hear what you have to say.
Molweni ke nonke. Mna ke ndingubanga umzi kaBhalakisi. Iyavakala le nto bo? All right.
I'm Bangumzi Balagisi.
Ndiphuma pha ePhedi eNgqushwa, Eastern Cape.
I'm from Pedi in an area called Ngoshwa in the Eastern Cape.
Ndingomnye ke utata owalinyazwa ile migodi yegolide.
I am one of the ex-mine workers that has been damaged by the gold mining industry.
Ndahlala ke ixesha elide kakhulu ndingayazi uba ndingenza njani.
After I left the mines, I stayed and I didn't know what to do.
Ngoba imine le ndiye ndafunyanwa kuyo yile nto yaseRandfontein Estate indithumele ekhaya.
Where I got sick in Randfontein, the Randfontein mine sent me home.
Kwabonakala uba ithi ke mbofela kowenu.
That clearly shows that they were saying must go home and die.
Ngoba emveni koko akho nto bekuyaphinde yayilandelela.
After that, after I left the mines, nothing was said by this mining company.
Ngoku seyazi uba indigoduse ndigula ndiminxwa sesifuba.
Whereas they knew that they retrenched me because I'm sick because of silicosis.
Ndagoduka ke imine ndinike i-15,000 kwezi mali besendizisebenzele.
When I was retrenched, I only received 15,000.
Ndafika ke ekhaya ndafika ndahlala. Ekuhlaleni kwam phaa ekhaya kuye kwathi phaa ngo-2006 ndabona apha kwitelevision omnye utata ekuthiwa nguThembisile Mankayi.
After a while, I was still at home. I saw on television one of the ex-mine workers by the name Thembisile Mankayi.
Lo tata xa ndandimjonga ndafumana ukuthi akaphilanga mpela and unalento ndinayo.
When I saw and listened to his story, I realized that he is suffering from the illness that I have.
Ndamjonga lo tata ndaqonda uba hey lo tata unalento ndinayo ke mna ke bendiserayitana noko xa ndijonga.
I saw him that he's very sick, but at least I was better than him by the time.
Kodwa ndayazi ukuthi ndiyaya kulaa nto kulaa ndlela kuyo.
But I knew that one day I will look like him.
All right ke ndahlala ke ndinjalo.
I stayed like that.
Ndazama indlela okokubana make ndifumane noba ngugqirha kwaphaya ekhaya.
I tried to find other ways. Then I went and consult one of the doctors at home.
Lo gqirha kwakuthiwa nguDr. Alexander phaa eKing Williamstown.
This doctor was Dr. Alexander in King Williamstown.
Kulo gqirha ke owaye wandixilonga wayijonga naye lento wayibona lento ndisuka nayo phaa emayini.
He's the one that was able to diagnose me that I am suffering from one of the illnesses from the mines.
Wabuza uba imayini ikhe yakunikani imali ngale nto ndiyibona phaa kuwe.
He asked if the mining companies did pay any compensation because of what I'm seeing within you.
lithe lama imayini akhange indinike imali ethi yale nto ndinayo.
I said, no, I never received any compensation because of what I'm suffering from.
Igqibele nje kula 15,000 yala malanga bendiwasebenzile.
The only money that I received was the 15,000 from the work that I've done before I left the mines.
Wathi ke kulungile ke ndizawubhala ileta ndithathe nale x-ray yakho siyithumele phaa eRhawutini.
Then he said he's going to write a letter, do an x-ray, then he will send those things in the mines.
Sibone ukuthi imayini ayizophendula na ke phaa.
Then we will see if the mining company will respond or not.
Lo leta ke yathunyelwa kwa-MBOT apha eRhawutini.
That letter was sent to the MBOD here in Johannesburg.
Ndabona kufika iiforms ke ezikhawulezileyo ezithi mandisayine ndifake iminwe ndise-police station kwenziwe yonke laa nto ngamapolisa.
Then after that, I received some forms from the MBOD. Then I filled the forms, went to the police station. I did everything that they asked me to do. Then we sent the forms back to them.
Kwathiwa ke le leta mandiyifake eposini ndiyithumele kwapha apha kwa-MBOD ngoba i-address eyipha.
Then I sent back the letter to the MBOD.
Into yoba ndihleli into engange-6 months kungekho mpendulo yale nto.
It took almost 6 months. We didn't receive any response.
Kodwa bebethe kum mandivule ne-bank account phaa ekhaya.
They even advised that I need to go and open up the bank account.
Nam ke ndakhawuleza uba imali ndiyayifuna ndahamba ndoyivula.
I immediately went to the bank and opened the bank because I wanted the money.
Loo bank account leyo yahlala yade yabe yavalwa ku-ABSA.
That bank account was never used up until it was closed by ABSA.
Mhla yafika laa mali yayi-48,000 loo mali babendithumele yona. Bayifaka phaa unathi u-ABSA.
Then after some time, there was an amount of 48,000 that went to ABSA Bank.
Into awayenza u-ABSA wathatha i-1,000 kulaa mali washiya i-47,000.
Then ABSA deducted 1,000 rand, then I was left with 47,000.
Kwasho ukuthi ke ngaloo mali ke ndandinikwa yona imayini ndanikwa imali eyi-47,000.
That means that the only amount that I received, it was 47,000 because of my illness.
Kwabe kumane kuvela ke lo tata ngutata uMangayi apha kule TV namagqwetha amabini.
Then after that, I saw that this Mankai person appears regularly on the TV, and there were 2 lawyers.
Ndazama ubuza ke ngokwenza i-research ngala magqwetha ukuthi aphi apha khoyo.
Then I started asking about these 2 lawyers. Where are they?
Ngoba i-case yam iyafana nalo tata. Lo tata une-silicosis kunye ne-TB. Nam ndine-silicosis ne-TB.
Because my case is the same as Mr. Mankai's case. He was suffering from silicosis and TB, and I'm also suffering from silicosis and TB.
Ndathi ndiyeva ke ngokutata uMangayi uswelekile yena.
Then I heard that Mr. Mankai passed away.
Alright ke ndafuna amagqwetha ke uCharles Abrahams obesebenza kwelaa cala lapha eCiskei kwakudala mos kwakuthiwa iCiskei neTranskei. Kena kwayisebenza kwelaa cala leCiskei.
Then I managed to get hold of Charles Abrahams, who was working on the Transkei side and Ciskei side.
Wasidibanisa ke uCharles sonke kwelaa cala ngaphaya bonke nje abantu abasebenza emayini abanesilicosis ne-TB.
Then they combined, Charles Abraham combined each and every name of the person who was working on the mining company.
Kanti uCharles Abrahams usebenza kunye noRichard Spoor no-Resource Center.
Only to find out that Charles Abraham is working with Richard Spoor and Legal Resource Center.
Kwade ke kwafika ithuba ke ngoku abantu mabaqokelele kuyovulwa icase apha eJohannesburg.
Then there was a time where people were registered and there was a case that was opened.
Icase siyivule ngo-August ka-2012.
The case was opened in August 2012.
Ndikhohlwa nje idate.
I cannot remember the date.
Kodwa nge-12 ka October 2015 beliqala ityala pha eHigh Court.
On the 12th of 2015, that's where the case started at High Court.
Laqhuba kusukela ngala 12 la kuma nge-23 iveke ezimbini.
Up until the 23rd, which is 2 weeks.
Yayingamagqwetha amaninzi ke la ayemele le case.
Those were different lawyers and men lawyers who were representing us.
Sahamba ke thina sagoduka kwabe kugqityiwe ke yonke lento. Sawulinda ekhaya ukuthi zizawuthini iziphumo ze-judge.
Then we went home and waited to hear what are the results after that.
Pha ngo-2016 zavela ke iziphumo zisithi i-case siyiwinile sonke.
In 2016, it was declared that the case, we have won the case.
Etyala kuthiwa lityala lesigqeba xa libizwayo ityala labantu abaninzi kodwa limelwa ngabantu abathathu.
This case was known as the litigation, even though there were 3 people that their names normally appeared the most.
Kwabantu bathathu omnye wabo yayindim.
Part of those 3 people, I was part of them.
Ababini ngabasekomani utata udala notata uNkomphela.
2 of them are coming from Queenstown.
Yayisithi ke babebekwe phambili kwelityala. Labe kanti ityala ke silwinile kwalindeleka ke ngoku izinto basithini.
After that, we waited to hear that is going to happen.
Amagqwetha ke aphinda abuya kuthi kodwa akwezawona amagqwetha ubuqu athumela abantu abangabanye.
The lawyers came back, but there were some representatives this time around.
Uzokunika ke ngoku izigqibo zawo kunye nemine ezibezibanjiwe ezimine ziyi-6.
Those representatives shared the information about the decision that was taken by the High Court.
Ukuthi baxoxe ntoni malunga nezigulo ezilapha kuthi malunga nokuphatalwa kwazo.
That what is it that they have reached, or the decision that they have taken about our illnesses.
Ndifuna uninika ke ezi price nizazi basithini.
I want to give you these prices so that you can know.
Ithe lento pha isilicosis xa iqala unikwa i-70,000.
They said if the silicosis, you have just contracted the silicosis, which means you are going to get 70,000.
Xa isiya ku-first degree ngoba xa isuka pha ekuqaleni iya ku-first degree.
Then when you reach the first degree,
ikunika i-150,000.
it gives you 150,000.
Xa isiya ku-second degree ikunika i-250,000.
When you are suffering from second degree, you receive 250,000.
Iphinde ke ibe ngulaa step 4 ungafuna ucaciswa kakuhle ukunika i-500,000.
Then there's that step 4, which is not even properly explained, where you get 500,000.
Ndifuna ukuthi ke ezo mali xa zizonke ezo mna ngokwam ndikafumani nesend kuzo.
With all those amounts, 4 amounts, starting from 70 up until 500,000, I haven't received any of them.
Amagqwetha la ndivile ukuthi ngawo afumene i-trust le kuthiwa iTshiamiso.
I've heard that the lawyers were also part of the establishment of Tshiamiso Trust.
Kodwa ndiyafuna ukuxelela ukuthi mna kwa ireport akhangeze ngokwa uzosixelela thina bantu.
But they have failed even to give us the proper report that the decision was taken that Tshiamiso Trust is going to compensate us.
Mna ukudibanisa amehlo kunye nawo ndiwagqibele court ngo-2015.
The last time that I saw these lawyers that represented us, it was in 2015.
Ngoku ke ndixakwe ngoku iTshiamiso i-trust le nawo bekuyo ifakwa ngawo.
Now I have a problem with Tshiamiso Trust also.
Abe wona engabonakali ukuthi aphi.
Even the lawyers, they are nowhere to be found.
Andizothi ke kwenzeka ntoni na kungekho umuntu utshoyo. Andizothi kwenzeka ntoni phakathi kwamagqwetha kunye neSiyamiso kungekho umuntu utshoyo.
I cannot say what is it that is happening between the lawyers and the Tshiamiso Trust,
Kodwa ndiyaqoqa ikhonde enukayo noba yintoni.
but I can tell that there is something that is happening there.
Umanager bekade phaa kuthiwa nguDaniel ngo-2020 ebethe kuthi masithumele i-second degree zethu phaya.
The CEO of Tshiamiso Trust, by the name Daniel Cotton, advised those that are suffering from second degree silicosis, they need to send their certificates.
Ufuna uqala ngo-second degree lo abantu abayi-20 azawuqala ngabo ubabhatala.
He will pay the first 20 of the people that are suffering from silicosis, second degree,
Unanamhlanje.
till today.
Loo nto ke nami ndixelele enye into ngoku.
This tells me something else.
Isiyamiso iyandixakekisa nami kakhulu, iyasiduba ngoku.
Tshiamiso Trust is so frustrating.
Isiyamiso indifowunele ndipha ekhaya usisi osebenza phaya.
One of the days, Tshiamiso Trust called me.
Uthi kum lo sisi i-ID yam iinumber zayo azihambi kakuhle.
This lady said, my ID number does not appear properly on the system.
Kwakho into ethi kum mandimbuze into yokokuba ithini i-ID yam.
Something told me like I need to ask this lady what numbers does he have? Does she have on the system?
Wathi hayi tata mna befuna uyiva apha kuwe.
She said, no, I wanted to hear from you.
Ndathi mna ndifuna lilapho kuwe.
Then I said, you need to give me the one that you have.
Ndathi khayibize le number ithini.
I said, give me the numbers.
Wayibiza inumber yonke woyigqiba. Ndathi inumber yam leyo nje.
She gave me my ID number and it was the correct ID number.
Yephi li wrong number.
Which ID number is wrong?
Watshintsha lo sisi wathi i-fingerprints zakho buzinyathelisileena.
She changed and talked about the fingerprints like, did I even take the fingerprints when I was doing, I was lodging the claim?
Ndithi ndizinyathelisile apha kuSiyamiswa apha eKing Williamstown.
I said I did that at the lodgement center at King Williamstown.
Wathi hayi tata zibonakala tu i-fingerprints zakho.
She said the fingerprints cannot appear on the system.
Ndabe sendiqonda uba ke ngoku le nto inenye into.
Then I realized that there is something beyond this.
Abantu bapha eSiyamiso ngathi bafundiswa amaqhinga kuqala.
Tshiamiso Trust staff, it seems as if they are trained to lie or they are some sort of crooks.
Abaqali ngosebenza ababantu baqala ngofundiswa kuqala indlela yokutya imali yabantu.
They don't start to work, but they are just being taught how to chow the money.
Nangoku ndiva kabuhlungu uba bengekho aba bendizayithetha bekho noba kodwa omnye wabo ukhona apha.
And I feel bad that they are not part of this. Even if they were here, I was going to say that.
Alright ke lo sisi ke sithethile le nto ndamka ndawucheck King Williamstown. Ndawucheckisha le nto ezi-fingerprints.
After that, I had to travel to King Williamstown so that I can check these fingerprints if they are wrong or not.
La computer phaa eKing Williamstown inye nalilapha eJohannesburg.
They are using the same system.
La mntana phaa ufika wayijonga wathi hayi tata i-fingerprints zakho nazo.
The lady that was in King Williamstown, which is the lodgement center, said the fingerprints do appear on the system.
Batsho njani ukuthi i-fingerprints zakho azibonakali?
How can they say your fingerprints do not appear properly?
Ndathi mna hayi indlela endifundiswe ngayo le.
That's where I said this is how you were taught.
Akukwazi ukundibuza kumba ngabana kutheni bethela ngolu hlobo.
You cannot ask me why they are saying that.
Ndithi nawe unelakho iqhinga nje mulapha nje.
I even said, even yourself, you are also a crook like them.
Ngoku kule veki kupheleyo, kule veki abalipheleleyo ndifowunelwe.
Only last week I received another call.
Wathi lo sisi tata kudala sikufowunele asikufumani.
This lady on the phone said, we've been trying to call you, but we cannot reach you on your phone.
Ndithi mna ngoku ndifumene njani?
And I asked her, how managed to get hold of me now?
Yephi le number kundifonela kuyo wena?
Which number were you using before?
Uthi yiyo le tata.
She said, this is the number that we've been trying to reach you.
Ndithi akhange undifowunele.
Then I said, I never received any call.
wathi hayi tata ke andiyazi namba bekusenzeka ntoni kodwa sifuna ukubhatala imali yakho.
And she said, no, we don't know what happened, but we want to make a payment.
Ndathi sisi ke izinto zama zikho apha kum xa isithi ufuna umakhuluskopo.
She wanted my industry number, but I was away from home, so I said I don't have any document with me at the moment.
Ufuna ne-account number yam.
She also wanted my account number.
Ndathi ezi zinto zifunayo zikho apha kum ngoku mna ndikwenye indawo ndisehlathini.
I said I don't have those documents with me.
Unondinika ilanga noba lelanga wamso okanye ngenye imini nothi ngoku.
Then I asked her to give me probably 2 days or so.
Akhange baphinde babuyele usisi.
Till now, they have not called.
Kubuye omnye usisi ngelanga elilandelelo.
Then there was another lady different from that one who called again.
Wabuya ke sikum ndamnika into akhange ndimnike yona i-account number le.
Then I managed to give all the details that she wanted, but the only thing that I didn't produce is the account number.
Ngoba ndithe kuye andikwazi ukunika i-account number yam usithi uzawufaka imali ongandixelelanga uba imali.
I refused to give her the account number because they did not declare how much is it that I was going to get.
Wathi hayi ke tata izawufakwa ke ngabanye abantu le mali mna ke ndizabe ke mna ke ndingekho bazawuxelela bona yonke into bazakucacisela kakuhle.
Then she said other people or their colleagues will be responsible to deposit the money, so they will explain everything to him on that stage.
Kusacaciselwa namhlanje uba ndilapha. Oko lalifika kuphele.
Till today I haven't received any.
Andazi ba ke kuxoxwa ntoni ke ngoku mhlawumbi ikhona nje enye iqhinga elenziwayo.
I'm sure they are still plotting other things because I don't know what is it that is holding them.
Ndifuna ukuthi ke ndiyabulela kakhulu enkosi kakhulu Tata Bishop. Okokuqala uTata Bishop ndiyambulela kakhulu ukuba khona kwakhe apha kule nto siyenzayo.
I would like to say thank you to Bishop Sioka for being here.
Into engenayo inkokheli kaThixo andithandi ncam ukuyilandela.
Something that does not have someone from the church side, I don't like to associate myself with.
Utata Bishop ndimbone ndisekhaya ngoba ndizophela ndimbone ngo-2019 sipha eNelson Mandela Foundation.
I saw him while I was still at home, but I managed to meet with him when we were in Nelson Mandela Foundation.
Ndathi lo tata kulaa tata ndandimbona kwityala laseMarikana.
Then I recognized his face to say I saw him when there was a Marikana case.
Ndatsho ndanethemba ke ngoku.
Then I had some hope.
Kakhulu no Richard ndambulela kakhulu no Catherine.
I would like to say thank you to Richard.
Sebenzi wabo bemkhulu kakhulu aba bantu.
They have done a lot of work.
Ungaphezulu kokarhulumente.
It's even beyond what government is doing.
Babakhathalele abantu abahluphekileyo aba bantu kakhulu.
They do care for the people that are poor.
Ndithi ke enkosi kakhulu nangani banizile apha nizoyimamela le ntetho siyithethayo.
I would like to say thank you very much for making time and listen to our stories.
Ilizwi lam ngoku Tata Bishop liyatsha liyatshona. Imiphunga yonakele. Andisenakwazi ukuthetha kakuhle enkosi.
My voice sometimes it becomes strained because of the lungs. So I cannot talk further than this. Thank you.
Enkosi.
As I said earlier on, that we've been to the communities in this country, Lesotho, Botswana, listening to people's stories. This is what we have heard. People crying out, saying that we are suffering, we are dying, and nothing is being done. And so to give Zianda a chance to rest her voice, I'll call on Catherine to tell us of the experiences we have and the struggles that we are fighting with Tshiamiso Trust. One of the problems that people are sharing with us is the appeal period. From 30 days, they must make the appeal to the lodgement. The other one, of course, is the issue of accepting MBOD second degree certificate, as we heard from Nomampondo. And we are also saying it's now 3 years. They have not been able to establish the medical review panel. That is why they're not able to pay people. So those are the issues that we're struggling with Tshiamiso Trust. We have written several letters asking for a meeting just to discuss and to share these stories that we have been told about by various people. But Catherine will explain a little bit more on these issues that I've just mentioned, please.
Thank you, Bishop. I think what might be helpful also just to give some context for those who don't know what silicosis is. So silicosis is a disease, an occupational disease caused by silica dust, which most gold mines in South Africa have this problem because our gold is found in silica rock. So what happens when you're drilling, when you're processing the ore, a very fine microscopic dust comes up, and the dust itself is actually like microscopic blades. When you breathe it in, it lacerates the inside of your lungs. Sometimes the disease can take hold within 2-3 years. Some other cases, it can take 10 or more years. It's something like a cancer, but what it does is that eventually you basically die by drowning in your own mucus and what's left of your lungs. You drown in that over a very long time in many cases. So you're infirm for several years, and many widows, many families are carrying the burden of that disease that comes from the mines. So you're not only in situations of deep poverty, but you are also in a situation where you cannot look after your family because you're looking after somebody who's infirm. You do not have access to even a toilet facility in your house. So you have widows who are carrying their husbands on their backs to be able to take them to the toilet. You have widows who have to look after the family by going to the fields to cultivate and still be looking after an infirm patient. And in some cases, it takes many years, bedridden, and this is a huge burden on the families who are already compromised. So in the cases that we're finding, and we made a film called Dying for Gold over a period of 3 years, and during that time we met many of the people across the region, from Welkom, around the Free State, Virginia, through to the Eastern Cape, across the Eastern Cape, Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique, and these stories are just repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. It's the most shocking, devastating thing. Because when people get ill, they're not on the streets protesting. They are ill, and their families are looking after them. So they're also unable to protest or stand up and say, this is what's happening. And then the mining companies have, as I said before, have pushed the burden of the disease out of the urban areas where they operate, or the areas around Welkom, and it goes back to the mining communities. So what we found is, well, we made the film, and in mid of 2019 was when they decided that the settlement would go through. And it then took several years again. They formed the trust in early 2020. It took them another 9 months to appoint a CEO towards October of 2020. Then it took them another several months to start the operations of the trust of February of 2021, where they started taking in lodgement for claims. Claimants would have to go and place their lodgements. And in every step of the way, we have been pushing them to make lodgement sites accessible to people. People are traveling hundreds of kilometers to get to lodgement sites with transport money, which comes from where? They're not earning any money. We have situations where people are sent back several times to redo x-rays. Why are x-rays being redone? We have had monitoring the lodgement BME sites, and we're finding that protocols aren't being followed. It's not an easy disease to diagnose. Silicosis, especially in the presence of TB, and also if you have silicosis, you're more likely to get TB because you've got open sores inside your lungs. So we are every step of the way finding the bureaucracy, as you have heard. This is what the bureaucracy looks like. People going back time and time again, calling the so-called toll-free number. There are supposed to be people speaking the languages of the claimants. They're not available. If they are available, they don't have all the answers to the questions of the claimants. They are confusing people. They are not on the ground. People do not know that Tshiamiso Trust exists. They do not know they have access to compensation for these diseases. There's a lot of myth that comes through with this. Also, if you have TB, many people are incorrectly diagnosed with TB instead of silicosis. So people are put on TB medication when in fact this is the worst thing that could happen to them. They should not have any TB medication. They should be treated. There is no treatment for silicosis. It is a disease that will kill you. So it's every step of the way. And then on top of everything else, we have a statutory compensation system which is run through the MBOD and the CCOD. It sits up here in Braamfontein, which is supposed to compensate people with occupational diseases like silicosis and TB. However, once you leave the mines, as you've heard already, only through hearsay do you find out, oh, actually, maybe there is a possibility I may get compensated for the disease that stopped me from working. And in fact, it was the fault of the mines that gave me that disease. So the information is not out there. We, with all our facilities as filmmakers, try to get a person compensated in Mozambique. We couldn't even get the documents out of the MBOD to send to Mozambique so that the doctor in Mozambique could fill out those documents. That man died without any compensation. His story is in the exhibition. So it's every step of the way we're finding. The bureaucracy, again, of not only sending people back and forth. We hear stories that x-rays are being sent via WhatsApp to the medical panel there sitting here in Johannesburg. You cannot read an x-ray off a WhatsApp. So we are finding in these BMEs, benefit medical examination, protocols aren't being followed, lung function tests are not being done correctly, and people are not being held in a respectful way when they are doing these. You're talking about people who are ill. Many of these people are already on oxygen, and they've been told to wait for hours, 4, 5, 6 hours. And in winter, this has been in the cold. During COVID, people were dying. Many people died because they're already compromised with the lung disease. So you can imagine what COVID did, decimated people. So we are in this unbelievable, and it is so hard to put forward and activate and get people to understand what will happen if you get ill. Even if you get ill right now, even if it's not silicosis, it may well be another occupational disease. This is what you're going to go through. This is the process. It's not only people who have silicosis and TB. We happen to be focusing on these particular diseases, but any occupational disease, this is what we are sitting with. There are billions in the mines. Every miner that does a shift in the mines right now, as we are standing right now, there are 400,000 people who are busy working on the mines, from platinum to gold to coal. Every shift that they do, a small amount from that shift goes into the compensation fund, which is supposed to pay people out for occupational diseases. But I'll tell you a little secret. The reason why they created that compensation fund many years ago, when it was decided that they would do that, because when they did the accounting of what it would take to make the mine safe versus paying compensation, it was cheaper for them to pay compensation than to make the mine safe. And that's where we still sit today.
Thank you, Catherine, for that. It's painful, isn't it? On a Human Rights Day, we're talking about issues of human rights that have been violated to an extent of death. Now, as you sit and listen to these stories, you want to ask yourself, what can I do to help? Zianda?
Thank you very much, Bishop. I won't say much, but part of my work, as I'm coming from the Eastern Cape, I'm working very closely with the widows and these ex-mine workers. So part of my life, I am interacting with them as on a daily basis. As when the Bishop was doing the introduction, that I was part of the team from the litigation case up until today. So this is honestly very challenging because we don't have answers to give to these widows, beneficiaries, and these ex-mine workers. Some of the challenges that we experience when it comes to Tshiamiso Trust, it is the poor communication. And unfortunately, they are closing their doors when it comes to JFM. Because if, for instance, I'm calling on behalf of Ndate Bangumzi, obviously they will say, no, want to speak with him because this issue is very confidential. And when they use that call center, they are listening like, welcome to Tshiamiso Trust, wara, if you want to speak. And these people are illiterate. So they are struggling to make these calls because they need to hear that English voice that is singing every day. And the claimant will call back and say, Zianda, these people are not picking up the phone. You need to explain that, no, Dada, wait up until there's a person, or press 2 or press 1. So the poor communication is the challenge that we are facing, and unfortunately for us, there is nothing much that we can do besides writing emails to the Tshiamiso Trust to say this particular person is having this particular problem. Then they'll say, no, give us their phone numbers, we'll call them back. Another thing that we are asking, or I am asking myself, is that how many people needs to die in order for Tshiamiso Trust to do or to pay the compensation? Every day we are receiving calls to say so and so has passed away. And unfortunately, they don't even know that they have a liberty to do these autopsies, to take these lungs and hearts to the NIOH, whereby we cannot have situations like this where claimants or the widows, the claimants, Home Affairs will write natural causes. At least there will be some sort of a detailed report to say this particular person died because of silicosis, died because of TB, or any other related lung disease. So this is very traumatic for us as people that are working with the affected communities. We have scammers on the ground that are using the same information that Tshiamiso Trust is giving people to say, no, come, I will help you, pay me 500 rands, pay me 1,000 rands. People are selling cattle, goats, going to the loan sharks where they can get money so that they can make the payment to this scammer, because they are hoping that one day I will receive the compensation. Unfortunately, that is not true. That's why you are saying, that's why Bishop is even saying, what is it that you are going to do? Because if we can spread the word, at least people out there cannot be victims of these touts. But unfortunately, it's not very easy. You know, something that is so true does not go so easily. People sometimes, they don't trust, even us sometimes, they don't trust us because they've been victimized by these touts and other people that said they are going to help them. Another issue that I think I need to raise, out of that desperation, Utata mentioned something about those 70,000 and 150,000. The reality of the matter is that some of the claimants, they receive less than that. There's one of the claimant that received 31,000. I think I had a conversation with him 2 weeks back. When I sent his documents to Janet, our medical advisor, Janet said, no, this particular claimant should have received 150,000. So Tshiamiso Trust is part of the people that scams these people. And unfortunately, these claimants are so desperate to take the money, to say, at least I received some 30,000, and they don't know if I received this 31,000. Is it enough? Is it not enough? They just accept whatever that comes to them. So each and every time, each and every opportunity that we get as JFM, besides going down to these rural areas to preach what is it that we know, to make them aware of their rights, we are happy that you are here. Because each and every opportunity that we get, we have some hope that one day there will be a change. Because honestly, how many people that needs to die? How many families that are hungry at the moment that need this compensation? Why compensation is so difficult? Why these institutions are making this so difficult and so not accessible to these claimants? Why they know that these people are not literate, they're not educated, but they're making the system very difficult for them. You cannot ask Utatu Bangumzi that he needs to go to a website. There's nothing that he knows about the website. You cannot ask him to call the call center that he will talk to someone who speaks English, because he does not know any of those things. Some of them, as Catherine was talking about statutory compensation, they don't even know that they have money that is lying on the MBOD. But when they reach, they try and call the MBOD, the only thing that they receive, all those forms that are written in English, they need to go is either to a reverend, to a teacher, or to wherever, so that they can be able to understand what is it that is written. So we're working in an environment that is traumatic, that is stressful, but because we love the work that we do, we don't give up, because we have a hope that one day someone will hear and there will be a change. So I would like to plead with you to say we need to continue this struggle, no matter how hard it is. But because there are people that like these, thousands and thousands, these are just two. We have thousands. Sometimes they will even call me now. It's the 21st of what's the date today? Of March. I'm sleeping at home, but I know that I will receive probably 10 calls, but it's a holiday, because people are desperate to need to know more. They are desperate to have answers. But unfortunately, if Tshiamiso Trust cannot give us answers, they cannot give them answers. Where are we going to give them those answers? Thank you.
Thank you, Azianda. Now, think about it. If the ex-minors or the widows or the orphans find it difficult to talk to Tshiamiso Trust officials, how much more for a person walking around with a cylinder of oxygen, or a person sitting at the lodgement center with a tank of oxygen? JFM has been trying, for an example, since November last year to have a meeting with Tshiamiso Trust. To date, we have... Since May, she says, but we're still waiting for them to say, okay, we're willing to talk to you. We're willing to hear what you have to say. We're willing to work with you, because this task is rather too big for ourselves as a trust to do on our own. It's not easy, but it will be easy if we hold hands with them and assist them. And now ask Mr. Lidwaba to share with us his own experiences with ex-minors and he wrote a book on this subject, Broke and Broken, and that tells you a story of its own. Sir, it's up to you.
Ke a leboga, Bishop. Thank you to my fellow panelists, and thank you all for taking the time to come here and share in this experience. I'm the author of this book. It's titled Broke and Broken, The Shameful Legacy of Gold Mining in South Africa. It was published in August 2016. The gentleman on the cover here is Mr. Zwelendaba Mgidi from Flagstaff in the Eastern Cape. And he has since passed away. His family has still not received any compensation for his suffering. When he went to work on the mines in the late 1970s, he was 23 years old. He was a boxer, he was a road runner, very fit. When he came back home, after he was retrenched, he couldn't even walk from his home to the clinic because his lungs were gone. He couldn't perform basic things that you and I do every day, like having a conversation. That was asking too much from him because he struggled to breathe. I remember one day when I went to visit him at his home, they used prepaid electricity. And I remember there was only 1 unit left, 1 kilowatt. Was it 1 kilowatt left? And I asked him, how are you going to deal with this matter? And he said, I don't know. All we do is to wait and wait and wait. Mr. Mgidi worked for more than 25 years on the gold mines on the Witwatersrand. And when he looked back, according to his words, when he looked back on his life, he felt that he had wasted his life because he had given it his all. He says he was one of the trusted workers. He worked so hard. But when he looks back, what did he gain? Because even the money that he was being paid at the time, he couldn't properly support his family, which is a story that repeats itself throughout most of Southern Africa. Because the men who went to the mines, they left their homes as men with dignity. They go to the hostels. They were dehumanized. From the moment they boarded the train, they were packed in there like people with no brains. They were packed in the hostels. They slept in conditions that are so inhumane. Just to think about it makes one very, very emotional. So, if you think about it, industrial gold mining started here in Johannesburg in 1886. The lawsuit that we are talking about here covers people that worked on the mines from 1965 to 2019. The court judgment by the Deputy Judge President Mujapelo in 2016 said the judgment will cover at least an estimated 500,000 people, that is former gold mine workers and their beneficiaries. But we are talking about 1965 to 2019. If we go back 1886 to 1964, how many other people's lives were destroyed by gold mining? Because even before then, to think about it, the conditions on the mines were even worse. If you go to mining mine shafts around Joburg, Velkom, the coal mines in Witbank, Emalahleni, the diamond mines in Kimberley. There are so many graves there, so many unmarked graves. Because people died in rock falls, they died in accidents, some got sick and died suddenly. They were buried there. They were called Amagoduga, men with no identity. They were worthless to the mine owners. They were only worth it when they were fit and they were working and they were extracting the minerals underground. So if you go around these mining towns, you find graves that are unmarked. You go around Lesotho, Eastern Cape, Botswana, Swaziland, Mozambique, even Malawi, you find so many families that are broken. They do not know what happened to their loved ones. The last time they heard was that this man was recruited for the mines and he never came back. We never heard from him. As African people, the issue of spirituality comes in there. When someone passes away, we need to know where they are so that we have that conversation and release their spirit. People do not know what happened to their loved ones. The panelists here are talking about Tshiamiso Trust claiming that it is very difficult to find the former gold mine workers. My question is, why was it so easy to find them when they were looking for their labor? It was very easy. They knew where to go. They knew which authorities to speak to. Why is it difficult now to find those very same people? Is it because now they are worthless? Is it now because they are sick? Is it because the mining bosses have made enough profit and they do not care anymore? I really want to commend the Justice for Miners campaign, because to tell you the truth, based on my experience, the former gold mine workers are on their own. They are on their own. It had to take a lawsuit 13 years after we officially buried apartheid on the statute books. It had to take a lawsuit by private lawyers to get the gold mining companies to act. Even then, when the matter went to court, the gold mining companies, the captains of industry, played delaying tactics. They were coming with so many technicalities, delay this process, drag the process out. In the making of this book, I visited with my colleague Leon. We went to Lesotho, Eastern Cape, and I had done many other assignments for various media after that. One thing that always strikes me, and that always stays with me, and that always says, regardless of whatever challenges that I might find in my way as an independent journalist, we have very little resources. But somebody must do the work. Because if we don't, like I said, the former gold miners are on their own. If we don't report these cases, then we might live another 100 years without seeing any positive change. You walk into homes in the villages where there's a family of 13 people, not one of them is employed. You walk into families where those 13 people rely on state social grant from the old person in the family or child social grants. You walk into homes where people do not know what they are going to eat. They do not know. They have no idea. Because there's no income in the home. The statutes from the 1800s, 1700s dispossessed people of their land, made it impossible for people to become self-sufficient so that they can go and sell their labor cheaply on the mines. Now, people only have 1 hectare of land which is exhausted. There is no regular supply of water. People do not have the means to produce enough food to feed themselves. You walk into homes where people have lost all hope. When they see you with your camera and your pen, they have some hope, but they have a lot of doubts. Because like Zianda was saying now, the way these people have been so dehumanized, so abused and re-abused, there are still people who go to these villages and see them as a way of making easy money. I have met people who have paid, they sold their livestock to pay people who said, no, I will help you to fast track your claim. And people gave away their documents, now they're left with nothing. That person is gone. We're talking about bureaucracy with the Tshiamiso Trust. If you don't have 1 document that you're looking for, you may as well forget about getting your claim processed. So we are dealing with a section of society that has been abused for centuries, because most people who worked on the mines are either 4th or 6th generation mine workers. The great-grandfather worked on the mines. When his son came of age, he also followed him. His great children also followed. All of them subjected to the same inhumane conditions. Same low pay. We can't even call it, sometimes I even find it difficult to call it a salary. Because what they were doing was to insult people who are working under these very difficult and dangerous conditions. They knew as early as 1900 that gold mining produces high levels of silica dust, which, when exposed to in a long term, can lead to very dire consequences. The only way that someone who has silicosis can find rest is when they finally take that final breath, because there is no medical science has not found a way to cure silicosis. So we can imagine we are dealing with a situation from 1886 to 2019. How many families, how many communities were brutalized and continue to suffer from the consequences of the crime committed by gold mining owners, supported by the state? Bishop Sioka was talking about the Marikana strike in 2012. I covered that strike. I saw him when he got into the car after pleading with the workers and leaving. When the bullets were fired, we were there to capture the action. The state used its force to suppress a labor dispute by workers. The same thing happened in 1987 when the National Union of Mine Workers staged one of the biggest strikes by mine workers here in Welkom, Witwatersrand. 1946, the Union of South Africa used the Air Force to bomb the workers here in Johannesburg, to say, no, go back to work. 1922, it was the same. So you ask yourself, what has changed? Why is it that a government that is led by a liberation movement that was founded by people that were really in touch with the needs and the suffering of people, why is it that after 1994, there was very little or nothing at all done to ensure that they address the issue of former gold mine workers who are still suffering today? Is it because now the mine owners are black men with white shirts and they've forgotten where they come from and they are enjoying these fruits of apartheid? Because that is what it is. We are sitting with a situation where we are being told now that there's a trust, Tshiamiso Trust, 5 billion rand is there, is sitting there. From the lawsuit was finalized in 2016, and the process to start the trust was established after that. From 2016 up to now, tell me, with all the resources that they have, why is it so difficult to go to Epedi, Kwatatu Palegis, and set up a satellite office there for 1 week and let all the people come and move on to the next one? Why is it so difficult to do that? Government has now started another process, the Department of Health. They started in KwaZulu-Natal in January, February. What they want to do is to start testing those people again. We are not talking about compensation, we are talking about medical examination. These people are tired. They are hungry. They have been abused. You even ask the question, Tatu Palegis was talking about 75,000 compensation for first-degree silicosis. If somebody who was laid off work in 2001 has never had an income, can never work again, because if you got silicosis, you can never work again. You are incapacitated. That person has been waiting 2001. It's 2023. That's 22 years. But before that, they were retrenched. They spent another 10 years at home. So it's 30 years. They've been waiting 30 years. And then you give them 75,000. So one of the aspects we need to interrogate is, okay, the lawsuit was good. It was justice. It means the mine workers, the mining houses are being held accountable. But would money buy back the life of those people? When I asked Atum Gidi, what is it that he really wanted or wished for? He said, I wish I could get my health back. That's all. Then I can see what I can do. So, yes, the lawsuit has raised a lot of expectations in families. It has created problems. I know one family in Lusigisigi. One of the uncles has confiscated all the documents because the person who passed away was his brother. So now his children are finding it difficult to claim. In a family of 14 people, people are waiting expectantly. They're saying, well, money's going to come, our lives are going to change. And then they get 36,000 or 76,000. Is that not going to lead to more problems in the families? So we always talk about a crime against humanity. To me, what the gold mining companies did to these hundreds of thousands of men and their beneficiaries is a crime against humanity. And how do you deal with a crime against humanity? We have the International Court of Justice, we have the International Criminal Court, we have other resources. I'm hoping, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know if that is possible, but I'm hoping that sometime in the future, somebody will find a way, they will find the time and the resources to take up this case and make it an even bigger case internationally. Because if I'm allowed, Bishop, I would like to read a small passage from the book which tells you what this thing has done to communities. It's from chapter 7 and it's headlined, Village of the Sick and the Dead. Ramafule is a picturesque village at the bottom of a flat, rocky hill near the Eastern Cape town of Mount Fletcher. Residents have a breathtaking view of the imposing Maluti mountain range, which forms the border with Lesotho in the distant northwest. This little village, which falls under the Alfred Nzo District Municipality, perhaps best represents the extent of the devastation the occupational diseases of former mine workers has wrought on rural communities of the Eastern Cape and elsewhere in Southern Africa. Brothers Mzigayise and Mzwandile Skabungana live just a few meters from one another and both have silicosis. A few minutes' walk from their homes, situated on the southern side of the village, lives Mncedi Alois Msutu. He also has silicosis. Across the winding road from Msutu's home lives Novusumuzi Makaba, whose husband Samson had silicosis and died in January 2000. All these people whose lives have been changed by this occupational lung disease know many other former mine workers, relatives, and neighbors who died from symptoms similar to those of silicosis sufferers. It is known here as the sickness of returning mine workers. I'll pause there. Catherine made a point about silicosis being a very difficult disease to diagnose. So mine workers go from Lesotho, Eastern Cape, they go and work in the mines for 20, 25, 30 years. Then they go back to the village after being retrenched and given 15,000 after 30 years of hard labor. They go back, the clinics in the villages only have medication for a headache, or sometimes they have nothing at all. They don't have the sophisticated machinery to deal with occupational diseases. So most of the people have died at home or in little hospitals in small towns. The death certificate reads natural causes. This person worked on the mines for 30 years. They were exposed to silica dust. Maybe the symptoms started showing a year before or a few months before they were retrenched. The family has buried this person. Now here comes this lawsuit. It says people need to claim so that they can be compensated for their suffering. The death certificate says natural causes. There's nowhere where it says silicosis or TB. So we are still sitting with a massive problem. So from our side as journalists, the only thing we can do is to stop complaining and to continue exposing the injustice, because throughout history it has been proven that journalism, if practiced according to the ethos of the founders of the profession, can bring about positive change in society. And I'm hoping that by the little work that we continue to do, writing books, interviewing people, conscientizing people, there'll be change and there'll be progress. We are hoping that this book in future will be translated into languages that are accessible to other people. isiXhosa, Sesotho, Siswati, Sitsonga, and other languages. On that note, I thank you all for taking the time to listen, and thank you, JFM, for inviting me. Thank you very much.
I think really I don't have to say more. You have heard it all. Except to say to you, what you have heard is not the whole story. Because there are minds who even today are refusing to be part of a settlement. Which means people who worked on those mines all their lives will get nothing. They don't count. They're nobody, they never existed, because the mines say, I am not part of this settlement. The other issue is that there are many people, as we did the roadshow, who are crippled. Some can't hear, some can't see because of what happened to them in the mine. The noise, the dust has crippled them. They are permanently disabled and unemployable. And that's a different story, but it's a story that we need to keep in our minds because it is real. So it's now time for you to ask questions of clarification or say something that you may have asked yourself about as a way forward. Thank you. Any takers? Remember, there is nothing like a stupid question. Questions are all intelligent things.
Dumelang bagolo le kae? Ke teng ka leina ke Motshidisi. My name is Motshidisi. I come from the Val Triangle. That's where I stay. And my uncle was a miner in Velkom, right? He came home, I think I must have been around 9. He came home to die. You know, he came home, he was coughing, and everybody said he has TB, you know, and I'm sitting here now, and I'm realizing that my uncle might have never had tuberculosis. It might have been silicosis, but we didn't have the vocabulary then to say what it was that actually took his life. But what I'm trying to understand is in the mining towns, like, number one, mining is extremely inhumane. As an industry, it is built on the backs of broken blacks. And I'm just trying to understand what is happening in mining towns from a perspective of development. Are the mining companies making efforts, you know, to make those mining towns places that are worth inhabiting? You know, is it, what's happening? Because I don't have sight of that world, and I would really like to know, as somebody who's also in the media and thinking of what kinds of stories we need to start telling, you know, about mining and its atrocities. What's happening in the mining towns at the moment? You know, I understand what's happening in the villages, but in the current mining towns where mines are very much operational, what is currently taking place?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. My name is Mashile. I just want to get one question to say, which are mining companies which are part of the settlement, which one are now refusing? Because, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I'm so devastated. I just want to know what's the call to action? How do you tell the next person, you know, outside of emotions, because of course our emotions are important, but what's the call to action? Where do we go? Oh, that's all.
Okay, the two mines that are not part of the settlement, DRD Gold and ERPM. And then the ones that are part is Harmony Gold, Sibanye Stillwater, Anglo American, African Rainbow Minerals. The other two famous ones.
Right. Now let's do the three. Is there any one to answer these questions? I think there was one particularly to you. Oh, this lady here.
Okay, thank you for your question. Mutsidisi, thank you. Sorry. After the Marikana massacre in 2012, government announced that they've put aside money to revitalize mining towns like Marikana, Emalahleni, Beggersford, Rustenburg, Welkom. That was in 2012, October. Today is 2023, it's 11 years later. You say your uncle worked in Welkom, you come from the Val Triangle. Have you seen any changes? Have you seen any changes in any mining town that you have visited? Mining towns in South Africa remain concentration camps. That is where people are left to die slowly and painfully from the effects of mining. The mining tycoons would never live in those towns. They live in Sandton, they live in Camps Bay, very far away from mining. So perhaps as journalists, that is our responsibility as well, to hold them accountable, to say, 11 years ago you said you are going to revitalize this town. What have you done? If you go to Marikana, Nkaning, where most of the mine workers lived before the strike, who still live there now, go and see for yourself. There's nothing there. There's a section outside Nkaning. When you are standing from a distance, you see a lot of bits and pieces of toilet paper in the bush. Why? People do not have toilets. Because there's no running water. There is no proper sanitation, no electricity. Where did the money to revitalize mining towns go to? Was it really something that government was planning to do, or was it damage control after the massacre? So maybe as journalists, that's what we need to dig and look at. Thank you.
Yeah, a call to action must come from each one of us. We can't tell you what needs to be done. I asked a question that you should ask yourself, what can I do to help the vulnerable, some of whom are dying as we speak, so that they can get compensated? One thing sure, they can never get their lives back. But at least, as Nomapondo said, let their children be educated so that they break the cycle of poverty. Any other?
Can I just add to the activities? So, on a practical level, is supporting justice for miners in our advocacy. So, when we want to have a meeting with the Tshiamiso Trust to put together all of the issues that we have found on the ground, that there is civil society that supports that action. Number two is the mining companies have massive records of all the miners that have worked on their mines. For many years, mining companies had to have hospitals for occupational disease. They have records which they have refused to digitize, which will then open up the access to compensation for all of these people who do not have documentation. They have all the documentation. TEBA has the records of service records. The mining companies have the medical records. Every miner was supposed to do an exit examination and an entrance examination. The medical records are there for access. Like Lucas was saying about finding miners. We, in our little old Land Rover, went across a region. It is simple to find people. Ntate on that hill knows Ntate on that hill. The chief or traditional leader here will say, do you know, oh yeah, no, so-and-so worked on Vaal Reefs, so-and-so worked on Sepang, so-and-so worked wherever. It is not a big issue. We are able to do this, and we need to remind them. We need to ensure that the Minerals Council holds these mining companies responsible to ensure that their trust works. They are responsible to make sure that Tshiamiso Trust work. The problem with them is they didn't give the Tshiamiso Trust enough administration fees so that they could run a proper trust, so they could access these people, so they got enough logistical support to get out there. So that is another issue. Never mind the fact that their website is inaccessible if you do not understand English. So all of these things have to be, you need to phone that trust and say, why aren't you speaking my language? You need to phone the Tshiamiso Trust, flood them on their Facebook pages, tell them this is not working. Because the people who, like Zianda says, minors do not have smartphones, never mind computers, or access to English. If they even have access to a phone, it might be Ntate so-and-so who lives on the next hill who will give them the SMS message from the Tshiamiso Trust maybe 2 weeks later, when they only have 30 days to appeal. So we're also now fighting the appeals process, that it needs to be at least 180 days if they want to appeal the finding. So when they've been paid 30,000, when they have second-degree silicosis, which is they should be paid 250,000, that we can appeal that, and we have time to do that. So there are many pressure points that can be applied by civil society with the support. Everyone needs to tell anybody you know. Most people do know somebody who works on a mine. Present-day miners should not be applying for compensation now because they're not sick now. If they apply now, the trust is 12 years, has a 12-year lifespan. If they apply now, they will fall off. When they get ill in 5 years' time, they will not be able to get the compensation. So they shouldn't apply now because they're not sick now. But they're insisting that people apply now on the mines. Also, another fact of the whole trust is 12 years. They're 3 years into the trust. We've got 9 years left. The 500 billion that was part of the settlement is not a ceiling. If we find more people, they have to pay them if it goes over the 5 billion. So they are putting all of these stoppages in place to try not to pay that 5 billion because they don't want to pay anymore. So another responsibility of civil society is to find those miners, to spread the word far and wide, every opportunity you get. Compensation is free to apply. No one should pay to apply for compensation. There is compensation for occupational diseases, silicosis and TB. So that's some of the actions.
Okay, ma'am. Yes, Catherine. Yeah, do that.
Hi everyone, my name is Nalidis Kakane. I am a journalist and I've been to some mining towns. Sorry, there's something in my eye. I've been to some mining towns just outside of Welkom, and what I found strange, which I feel like there's a gap there, but obviously as Rayleigh Daba and Bishop has said, those are the things we should be looking into as journalists to try report. In every single block of the neighborhood, there would be a man who's crippled or who's in a wheelchair because of what happened in the mine. And there doesn't seem to be, obviously, Tshiamiso Trust and the litigation that happened before that didn't cover that. So is there anything that's been done about those people? I know the Bishop mentioned a bit about other forms of people now living with disabilities due to what's happened in the mines. And in most cases, like one of the men I spoke to, he said his body just gave way while he was working and he was perfectly fine, but then his body just kind of collapsed, and after that it never functioned the same, and he's been trying for years. And obviously that's what we've been speaking about today, the dodging and diving. And but what I think is most painful is the fact that it's not even a conversation to be had right now. It's not on the table. It's either you had TB or silicosis and there's nothing else, as if that's the only kind of incapacitation and the devastation that working at a mine can do to you, whereas it's really crazy to see what happens in mining towns. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Okay, and I'll be next.
I'm Donnie. I'm really shocked. You know, my first shock was really to be confronted with the film initially. The shock that, you know, we have been built on such horror. Our wealth has been built on such levels of horror. So then there was this like relief nearly that there was this class action, and a kind of a relief that there was the verdict. So justice seemed now to be being done. So this is now a hell of a second shock to sit and listen to you guys. Yeah. I mean, it's like a criminal has been convicted. We believe in the justice system. There was a fine. But this criminal is just like playing with the court and with the sentence. And the victims are not being compensated. I mean, it is a new level of criminality that's going on. So, and people, I mean, most people I speak to, black or white or whatever level, wherever they are positioned, academics, activists and so on, they don't know the story of the mines, or even. People will say, oh, really? Wow. And that's the end. So, you know what? My questions, one question is, you've made this brilliant film, you've written this powerful book, and yet our people don't seem to hear. Somehow we don't seem to access, and yet people continue to die. You know, listening to you now, I'm just thinking of George Floyd. I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe, and you know, it was all over the world. I mean, in a short video, that thing went worldwide. And listening to you, I mean, it's like we are a collective George Floyd. I mean, our people have been unable to breathe, many thousands of people, for years and years, and it seems to bother nobody in society. Not even the perpetrators, you know. So I'm just sitting here wondering if a short video taken by somebody in the street could result in George Floyd becoming a symbol of the injustice of a system. What do we need to do to harness our knowledge and information and do a double take? Firstly, expose more broadly the past and the present, and then the injustice of justice not being served in spite of this expensive court action.
Thank you. Sir?
Dumelang hape le kae? Ke mo ke itse ka lebitso. Ha o bonolo hobane o dula mona and then o bo utlwa this whole information, and it's very challenging for the mere fact of that we are human beings, and realizing how the human, it's not acknowledged as human. And I'm saying this simply because I do have an uncle. He just left work now. But he's always crying about pains in the body, pains in whatever. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, for me, the call of duty now is to go to him and speak with him and make him aware of such information that I've just received today, so that he can be able to share with other friends or other colleagues that he used to work with. So I'm just saying thank you so much for giving us this heavy information. And thank you for you guys for holding it and sitting with it till now. Because it's not healthy for you to be sitting with a lot of stories. And how are you guys managing? How are you guys coping? Because already this sits in the body, sits in the soul. So I'm just saying thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
For sitting with the stories till today and for keep on sharing with us. And then again, for the Call of Duty, I'm just suggesting that all of us in a different department, in a different positions, in a different careers, let's try to make way of like speaking out about this issue. I, as an artist now, I'm forced to write a play now about this story. I must make sure I must write a play. I must take it to those theaters so people can hear about it. That becomes a call of duty for me. So I'm just saying all our departments, a little bit of whatever we can do, let's just do it. Thank you.
Great stuff, great stuff. We have an exhibition that will probably speak louder than what we have been saying here, and would really want you to see it, because it is a very powerful way of telling a story. But I think that the challenge, as it was asked, it's what each one of us commits to doing after this session. I said earlier on, it starts here, but it does not end here. It goes out of those doors to the communities where we come from. I think the journalists present here, I want to challenge you to call Tshiamiso Trust tomorrow and say, why aren't you talking to JFM? Why aren't you working with JFM? And what they have to say. It has been said to me, I have no evidence for this, that somebody as a trustee of Tshiamiso gets more than 2 million rands in salary. Yet they can't pay 70,000 rand. I said, I have no evidence for this, but it has been said to me, Bishop, are you aware that Mr. Lidwaba is being paid 2 million rand? Investigate that, find out. The other thing that we need to do is to listen to what people are saying and ask questions. Let me give you a simple example about myself. When I was visiting mines as a young priest, there are towns when I entered, I would sneeze nonstop, sneeze, and start coughing. Old mines are just as poisonous as fresh mines. I've run a project right now at Snake Park of children who are born. They can't sit on their own. They are ever lying down because of the water and the air just outside Soweto. And the stories are there. So you have to ask people, why are you coughing so much? Did you ever work in the mines? Maybe the person would say, yes, I actually did. And you say, well, have you ever spoken to JFM? They can help you to reach out to Tshiamiso Trust so that you get your compensation. So those are little things that we can do individually and collectively to make a difference in the lives of these people. So thank you very much. I think that we need to adjourn to the exhibition. But before that, I just want to ask each one of us who has an idea of what we can do, or suggest, advise what we can do after this workshop. Just say that, I'll write about it. Huh? I'll tell my uncle, like the young man said, he's going to do a play. That's beautiful. So there's something each one of us can do. And so I want to ask each one of us just to say, I'll do this. Any takers? One? Yes, ma'am? Just talk, or talk loud, it's okay.
He
yeah.
said he was recording, so I was
Okay.
just respecting his craft. So I work for the SABC, and I'm in the licensing division, and I didn't know that there was a film on this. And I will make contact with Catherine to see how we can get it to reach as many South Africans as possible.
Thank you. Lovely. Any other suggestion? We have now an artist who will create a play to tell this narrative beyond these walls. And we have a person from SABC who will make sure that the Dying for Gold, it's called, will be shown on the television. Yes, sir.
This is really a moral and ethical issue. Did you engage already the Council of Churches, you as a bishop?
Yes.
And how strongly is the church supporting this cause?
We're struggling. Personally, I was actually the president of the council myself. There are things that until they affect you directly, you don't pay attention to. I think we're at that stage that most of the clergy persons have never had the experience of being in a mine community. I was once responsible for that program where we used to take clergy, and particularly in the Anglo mines, they were very open to allow us to go down to experience what it is to dig gold. And so we're struggling, but we're writing to all of them, we're talking to all of them, they hear us, but not much action is coming out of that.
So I will support you on that one.
Thank you.
Getting to the church.
Thank you. Any other? Okay, yes, sir. Just very briefly then, sir. Oh, just then it's good. Oh, okay.
Thanks. I'm activist. I want to be part of this, and I will engage other activists to be part of the movement.
Thank you. Do you want to? Oh, okay. Are we done?
I just want to ask the journalists, when you do speak to Tshiamiso Trust, the devil is in the detail. When they tell you they've paid out 11,000 people, you must understand they've paid on average less than 70,000 rand per person. So they may have paid a few people 250,000 and a lot of people less than 70,000. The MBOD, which is a statutory compensation, pays people and certifies people. So for example, if you have a second degree certificate from the MBOD, you should immediately be paid 250,000 rand from a Tshiamiso Trust. That is what should be paid. Notwithstanding if you worked on DRD Gold or ERPM, in which case you will not be, because you're not part of the qualifying mines for the qualifying period, another proviso. So what they will do is they'll take that 250,000, which you are supposed to be paid, and they will then subtract pro rata if you worked on a mine that isn't a qualifying mine or not a qualifying period. So this is where the detail is, and this is the problem. So when you ask these questions, they're going to come up with, oh, look at our fabulous database. Go and look at how many people we've accessed. They are going to do that to you. And I've had this with many journalists. And then they come back to me and they say, but they said they had this, and they've got all the people who speak the languages, and look at all, they're sending now SMSs in all the languages, and yes, that may be true, but this person doesn't have a phone. Yes, that may be true, but this person can only have access to a death certificate that says natural causes. Yes, that may be true, but where in the trust deed it says the trust itself must commit to helping claimants access documents. You can't turn them away because they don't have the documents. If they say to you, yes, but this person doesn't have the correct documents, why haven't you assisted them?
Okay. Now, since I've asked all of you to say your last words, I'm asking the panelists to do that, and Catherine has just did that. Mr. Draba?
What am I going to do? I'll continue doing more, digging more.
Or advise what we must do.
Yes. And to my colleagues, I'm saying let us always remember our responsibility to society, to expose that which is hidden.
That's right.
To hold those in positions of authority accountable, whether it's Tshiamiso Trust or government or any other body. Let us continue. Let's stick to the basics. Let's expose injustice, because that is what journalism is about. We became journalists not because we want to be famous, but because we want to expose injustice. And I think from my side, and I think I'm also speaking on behalf of my colleagues, that's what we are going to continue doing.
Thank you. Begumzi.
Enkosi kakhulu. Hayi nami ndiyabonga ngayo yonke lento yenzekayo apha. Kodwa ubangabana Tshiamiso le ayinawusiwe enkundleni yona. Akuzolunga nto apha. Njengezimine. Ezimine nazo bezifungile. Zisithi ayisayize ziyikhuphe le mali le 5 billion. Kodwa the zawusiwe enkundleni zayikhupha imali.
Thank you very much for being here. This clearly shows that if we can take Tshiamiso Trust to the high courts, it shows we can get some of the answers, because even the mining companies never knew that one day they will be held responsible to pay compensation to the ex-mine workers and their families.
ndiyacela ke sizizameni indlela zokuba singayifumana umuntu onosikhokhela sibheke ngasenkundleni.
I would like us to try and find ways if we can get maybe someone who can lead us to go to these courts.
Nangoku yabe sisezimine court besingenamali.
Even the time that we took these mining companies to the courts, we didn't have money.
Kodwa igqwetha belimele imine pha enkundleni lithe umbuzo walo. Kutheni nento abantu bemelwe ngamagqwetha amaninzi kangaka?
But the lawyer who was representing the ex-mine workers asked why these ex-mine workers are being represented.
Yathi judge ayingowakho lo mbuzo.
And the judge said that is not the question you should ask.
Enkosi kakhulu.
Thank you.
I say thank you to the journalists. Xa beza kwenza indlela yokuthi bazame ukuthi Tshiamiso mayibone ukuthi siyalo imali zodasa zobayeni bethu. Because kaloku banazo izitifiketi zesilicosis. Befanele xa sihambisa documents zethu siyabhatala. But basiqalise eqala kodwa sinazo izatifiketi eziproof zokuthi banesilicosis abayeni bethu. Kodwa ngoku bayasisokolisa. Ndiyabulela xa nizawudlala irole yokuthi nenze ukuthi babone.
I would like to say thank you very much, more especially to the journalists that are here, because they will be able to expose more information, more especially with this issue of the medical records, because we are really struggling to get hold of the medical records. If we do have the medical records, why these people can't pay us? So keep on going and make sure that you expose that information. Maybe that will assist.
Right. Don't sit down now, it's you. Huh? Say your last word.
Okay. No, thank you very much for being here. I'm very happy that some of you are committed to do something about this, and I know all of you will go back home and think more. Obviously, we will be in touch. Catherine Bishop, they are always here in Johannesburg, but we also love when we see all Lucas and other journalists going down to the Eastern Cape to find these people, because that's where the problem is and that's where they can get the real stories. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for your contribution, whether you said something or you didn't say something, but your presence means a lot to us. The exhibition is down, not even a block